Okay, so picture this. You're reaching for that bottle of pills in your medicine cabinet, right? Something most of us do without even thinking twice.
Part of the daily routine.
Exactly. But have you ever actually stopped to think about the journey that little pill took to get there?
From lab to medicine cabinet.
Well, it actually starts even before the lab on a construction site. Today, we're going behind the scenes of those massive pharmaceutical facilities, the places where your life-saving medications are actually made.
Talk about high stakes.
Absolutely. And trust me, building one of these facilities is not as simple as slapping up a few walls and calling it a day. It's a complex process with a ton of moving parts.
That's where our friends, the project management consultant or PMC team, come in. Ever heard of them?
The unsung heroes of the pharmaceutical world. They're the ones making sure this super intricate process actually runs smoothly, like the conductors of a huge orchestra, making sure everyone's in sync.
Perfect analogy. And we've got our hands on a document here outlining a PMC team's responsibilities for a brand new facility.
Our deep dive blueprint, basically. This document lays out pretty much the entire project's life cycle. So buckle up, because we're diving deep into the world where construction meets chemistry. And first up on the agenda, purchase management.
Sounds exciting.
Well, it's not exactly a shopping spree at the mall.
More like navigating a minefield of specialized equipment and materials, making sure they meet those really strict pharmaceutical manufacturing standards. Think millions of dollars worth of machinery.
And every ingredient in those medications has to be super precise, right?
Absolutely. And so does the equipment used to make them. We're talking materials that can handle intense temperatures, pressure, components that fit together perfectly. Everything has to be top-notch.
So how do they make sure they're getting the good stuff?
That's where factory acceptance tests, or FATs, come in. The document really highlights these.
Factory acceptance tests. Sounds intense.
They are. Imagine a giant piece of equipment shows up on site, like, say, a massive industrial mixer.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Now, what happens if that thing doesn't work? Maybe the motor's busted or a critical part is missing.
Talk about a major setback. Delays, repairs, the whole 9 yards.
Exactly. And that's where those FATs come in. The PMC team, they oversee these tests beforehand at the supplier's facility. They're like quality control experts.
Making sure everything's up to snuff before it even gets to the construction site.
Exactly. It prevents those costly delays and ensures the facility runs smoothly from day one.
Talk about sweating the small stuff. Or in this case, the potentially enormous and expensive stuff.
It's all about meticulous planning. And speaking of which, once everything's purchased and tested, it's time to actually build the thing. We're moving from blueprints to bricks and mortar.
From the drawing board to the construction site. Though I'm guessing this isn't your typical office building project.
Not at all. It's more like building a spaceship, but for pills. The document breaks it down into phases. Building construction, of course, but also incredibly complex plumbing for those sterile environments. They need specialized HVAC systems for precise temperature and humidity. Then there's the utility piping, fire suppression systems.
It's mind-boggling how much goes into it. Like a giant complex puzzle.
And just like a puzzle, if one piece is off, the whole thing can fall apart. Even a small error in the plumbing could compromise the entire facility.
And I'm guessing those mistakes could cost a fortune to fix. Not to mention the impact on getting those medications to patients.
Precisely. The PMC team's role in construction management is crucial. They're not just supervising, they're guardians of quality and safety.
So they're the conductors, keeping the orchestra in tune, but also the stage managers, making sure the set is built to perfection.
And don't forget the lighting crew. Even the lighting is crucial in these facilities.
It's amazing anything gets built at all with so many details to manage.
It really is. It takes incredible skill and organization. One thing that really stood out to me in this document was the mention of town passing.
Town passing? That sounds more like something out of a Western movie than a high-tech pharmaceutical facility.
It's a colorful term. In this context, it means community relations, because even in this cutting-edge industry, you still need the local community on board.
Right. You can't just build a massive facility in someone's backyard without, a heads up.
Exactly. Town passing means following local regulations and addressing any concerns residents might have. It's a reminder that even these high-tech facilities are part of a community.
Building trust and transparency is key. It's not just about the science and construction, it's about people too.
Exactly. Recognizing that a project like this has a ripple effect.
It's all connected.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got all the supplies, construction is going, but with so many moving parts, I imagine keeping everything on track must be a nightmare.
That's where project coordination comes in. Imagine trying to wrangle architects, engineers, suppliers, contractors, the client, all on the same page, all while staying on schedule and within budget.
It's like herding cats, but instead of yarn and catnip, you're dealing with blueprints and millions of dollars.
Got it. It's high-stakes coordination, and that's where the PMC team really shines. They're the central hub, the go-to source for information, the ultimate problem solvers.
And it's not just about herding those cats, though I can't imagine there are too many actual felines running around a pharmaceutical construction site.
Probably for the best. Hygiene and all that.
Right. So back to the PMC team. They're not just glorified cat herders, are they?
Definitely not. This document really highlights their role as a communication hub. They're the ones who handle those inevitable design changes that pop up.
Like when the architect's vision doesn't quite mesh with the reality of, say, industrial-sized equipment.
Exactly. Or when you have those nail-biting material delays that can throw a wrench in even the tightest schedule. The PMC team has to figure out how to minimize those disruptions, keep the project moving.
Sounds like they need to be masters of improvisation, thinking on their feet, coming up with creative solutions on the fly.
Absolutely. And if that wasn't enough, they're also working hand in hand with the C.U.B team.
The C.U.B team. Okay, now we're getting into acronym territory. You're going to have to break that one down for me.
Right. C.U.B stands for Commissioning, Qualification, and Validation.
Sounds important.
It is. You might think that once the building's up, the PMC team's job is done. But that's not even close to the whole story.
It's not like you just hand over a giant, complex pharmaceutical factory and say, good luck with that.
Definitely not. C.U.B is all about making sure that intricate facility actually works the way it's supposed to, that it meets all those super strict pharmaceutical standards we keep talking about.
So it's about making sure every single piece of this massive puzzle actually fits together and functions perfectly.
Exactly. We're talking about meticulously testing every piece of equipment, validating every process, documenting everything in detail.
Wow. Talk about attention to detail. It makes sense, though. We're talking about medications that could literally save lives.
Precisely. No room for error.
And speaking of which, safety must be a huge priority in these facilities.
Absolutely. And the document really stresses the PMC team's role in safety monitoring, especially when it comes to OSHA guidelines.
So we're talking about the safety of the people working on the construction site itself, making sure it's a safe environment for everyone.
Exactly. We're talking rigorous safety training, identifying potential hazards, making sure everyone has the proper protective equipment. It's about creating a culture of safety from the ground up.
Because even what seems like a small accident on a site like this could have major consequences down the line.
Absolutely. And the PMC team takes that responsibility very seriously. One thing that really jumped out at me in this document was the focus on incident reporting and investigation.
So it's not about placing blame if something goes wrong.
Exactly. It's about learning from every single incident, no matter how small. They analyze what happened, figure out the root cause, and then they use that information to improve safety protocols. It's about preventing future accidents.
Very proactive. Okay, so we've covered purchasing, construction, coordination, safety. Feels like we've built this entire facility from the ground up.
We're getting there, but this document goes beyond the basics of just building a facility. It also talks about future-proofing it.
Future-proofing. Now that's interesting. What does that even entail when we're talking about a pharmaceutical facility?
It's a great question. Essentially, they're thinking long-term, anticipating challenges and also opportunities that might pop up as the industry evolves. Because believe me, it's evolving fast.
So they're not just building for today's needs, they're building for needs they might not even know about yet.
Precisely. They need to design a facility that's flexible, adaptable, one that can accommodate new technologies, regulations, even entirely new ways of manufacturing medications. And one thing the document explicitly mentions is risk management.
So that's like having a backup plan.
Yeah.
Actually, scratch that. More like a backup plan for your backup plan, right?
Exactly. They're thinking about things like, what happens if there's another massive supply chain disruption?
Oh yeah, remember those.
Mhm.
It felt like you couldn't get your hands on anything for a while there.
Right. So the PMC team is asking, what if a crucial part gets held up halfway across the world? They're thinking about potential regulatory changes too, which happen all the time in this industry. They have to make sure the facility can adapt.
So it's about expecting the unexpected, trying to prepare for any curveball that might come their way.
Exactly. They're also thinking about things like natural disasters, economic downturns, anything that could disrupt operations. But it's not just about mitigating risk, it's also about embracing new opportunities. And one of the biggest ones on the horizon is sustainability.
Right. Because even big pharmaceutical companies need to be environmentally conscious these days.
Absolutely. And it makes good business sense, too. This document actually mentioned LEE certification.
LED certification. Now, that's something I've heard of. It's all about eco-friendly buildings, right?
Right. LEED stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. Basically, it's a globally recognized rating system for how green a building is.
Like a gold star for sustainable construction.
Exactly. And the PMC team plays a big role in making those sustainable practices a reality. They're thinking about things like energy efficiency, saving water, reducing waste, using sustainable building materials, anything that lessens the environmental impact.
So they're building for the future. In every
Yeah.
sense of the word.
Precisely. And speaking of the future, there's one more aspect of future-proofing I found fascinating: Pharma 4.0.
Pharma 4.0. That sounds like something straight out of science fiction.
It does, doesn't it? But it's quickly becoming reality. Imagine a pharmaceutical facility where everything is interconnected. Automated systems, real-time data, artificial intelligence, you name it.
Like a smart factory, but for making medicine.
You got it. Pharma 4.0 is all about using those cutting-edge technologies to make everything run smoother, improve quality control, and even personalize drug production.
Now, that is seriously cool. So the PMC team is involved in actually integrating those technologies into the building's design.
Absolutely. They're working side by side with technology experts to make sure the facility is ready for anything. They're thinking about data infrastructure, network security, even the space needed for things like robotics. It's about designing a facility that's not just future-proof, it's future-ready.
That's incredible. Okay, last but not least, this document touches on regulatory compliance, which I have a feeling is a big one.
You're not wrong. The pharmaceutical world is probably one of the most heavily regulated industries out there, and for good reason. We're talking about people's health here.
Right, no room for cutting corners.
Absolutely not. The PMC team is instrumental in ensuring the facility meets all those strict standards right from the start.
So everything from the materials they use to the air filtration has to be completely by the book.
100%. They're working with agencies like the FDA, making sure the facility adheres to good manufacturing practices, GMP for short. It's all about guaranteeing those medications are safe and effective.
No room for error when it comes to something as vital as medicine.
Exactly. The PMC team is constantly reviewing plans, inspecting the work, making sure every I is dotted and every T is crossed.
Talk about a high-pressure job.
Yeah.
They really are the unsung guardians of quality and safety in the pharmaceutical world.
I'd say that's a pretty accurate description.
It's amazing how much goes on behind the scenes to get those medications to us. Really makes you appreciate the whole process.
It really does. And to think this document we've been looking at, it's just a glimpse into this intricate world. All that planning, the constant vigilance, it's really impressive.
It's like a perfectly choreographed dance, except instead of dancers, you've got engineers and scientists.
And incredibly high stakes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's all about getting those life-saving medications to the people who need them. But getting there, that's a massive team effort.
With the PMC team right there in the middle of it all, making sure everything runs smoothly, every detail is covered.
They really are the unsung heroes of the pharmaceutical industry. They may not be the ones in the lab coats, but their work is just as critical.
Couldn't agree more. And you know what we've talked about today, that's really just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, I bet. This industry is constantly changing, evolving.
Exactly. As technology keeps advancing, as the demand for new therapies grows, who knows what the future of pharmaceutical manufacturing holds?
That's a great question, and one for our listeners to ponder. How will things like personalized medicine, treatments tailored to your unique DNA, or AI-driven drug discovery change the way these facilities are designed?
Those are some exciting things to think about. The possibilities are truly mind-boggling.
They really are. This has been a fascinating look behind the curtain of an industry we often take for granted, and honestly, I'm blown away by the complexity of it all.
Me too. It's been a pleasure diving into this with you.
Likewise. So next time you grab that bottle of medicine, take a second to think about the journey it took to get there, from those initial blueprints to the construction site to those highly controlled labs.
And spare a thought for those PMC teams working behind the scenes to make it all happen.
Absolutely. Okay, that wraps up our deep dive into the world of pharmaceutical facility construction. Until next time, stay curious and keep asking those questions.